welcome back to Urban X-Files. My name is Keith, and today's video is all about the legend of King Arthur, Excaliber, and Merlin, the Great Wizard. The legend of King Arthur states that he was born sometime in the 5th century, and it is said that the great Merlin, the magnificent magician, had disguised Uther Pendragon, one of Britain's most great warriors, to look like the Duke of Tintagel, which is the husband of Ingrain of Cornwall. These are all characters, people even. And that Uther had seduced Ingrain at the cottage, and the child they conceived was given away at birth. He was named Arthur and was raised completely unaware of his special lineage. When Uther had died, the throne had become empty, and Merlin had set a sword called Excaliber in a rock and stated that only someone of truly royal bloodline would be able to remove Excaliber from the stone and become the rightful king. When young Arthur was only the one who was able to do this, he was pronounced king. 11 other British rulers rebelled against this young leader, but Arthur quashed their uprising and began a noble and glorious reign. Arthur married Guinevere and assembled a group of courageous and honest knights at a kingdom seat, the Round Table of Camelot in the Vale of Avalon. To avoid any sense of preference among the knights, Guinevere's father provided Arthur with the fabled Round Table. Together they had great victories over Saxon invaders and the Roman Empire. Arthur is even said to have become emperor himself and set about on a search for the infamous Holy Grail. However, during this time, one of Arthur's most trusted knights, Lancelot, had an affair with Guinevere. This marked the beginning of the end for the legend of King Arthur. The two lovers fled to Lancelot's land in Brittany. In France, Arthur decided to follow and wage war on his former friend, leaving his nephew, Mordred, as the custodian of England. Whilst he was battling across the English Channel, Mordred rebelled, so Arthur was forced to return home. A fierce battle ensued in the Salisbury Plain. Arthur managed to kill Mordred, but the king himself was also mortally wounded. On the brink of death, he returned to Avalon. He is said to have thrown Excaliber into the kingdom's lake, and then he himself disappeared into a cave, pledging he would return if ever danger threatened England. The first historical proof we have of the Arthurian figure is in Gildas' 6th century De Excidio Britanniae, which refers to British soldiers being led by a man called Ambrosius, and the name Arthur appears in Nini's the 9th century Historia in Britain. However, it was not until the 12th century that the phenomenon of Arthur as a historical icon really had an impact. William of Malmesbury and Geoffrey of Monmouth produced works which sowed the seeds of our modern understanding of the Arthurian legend. Unfortunately, their works also included many fictional details which have subsequently obscured the true reality of King Arthur's reign. There is other evidence for his place in historical fact. Many believe that Glastonbury in Somerset is the true site of Camelot, and the 12th century it was claimed that Arthur's grave had been found there. Similarly, the Isles of Sicily are also said to host the remains of the great king. There are plenty of candidates for places featured in Arthurian mythology, and historians have discovered many possible historical figures who could be King Arthur himself. Many historians believe that the sheer number of possibilities as to Arthur's true identity is probably the reason that our knowledge has become so blurred, and that many individual personal theories have been actually confused and amalgamated. But what we do know is that in the 6th century, many Celtic realms and leaders born who were also called Arthur. This could have been in homage to the original king, although the use of the name has clouded the original Arthurian legend. It is also pointing to the fact that a truly great inspirational leader was at present a generation before. But perhaps the most amazing evidence has only surfaced in recent years. Sometime in 1998, archaeologists found a slab marked in Latin with the name Artagnol on a rocky hilltop in Cornwall. The slab dates to the 6th century and proves the name was present in the legendary Arthurian lands at the correct time, and it belonged to a man of some standing. But like many other historical mysteries, the damage to truth caused by passing years is slowly being fixed by science and application of modern interests. Will we ever know exactly who the legend in King Arthur represents? Or is it all fictional? So more of King Arthur. As we discussed earlier in the video, King Arthur was the first born son of King Uther Pendragon and heir to the throne. However, these were very troubled times. There was Merlin, who was a very wise man and also a very powerful magician, advised that baby Arthur should be raised in a secret place and that none should know his true identity. As Merlin feared, when King Uther died, there was a great conflict over who should be the next king. This is when Merlin used his magic to set a sword in a stone. And written on the sword was in letters of gold were these words: "Whoso pulleth out this sword of this stone is the right wise born king of all England." Of course, the many contenders for the throne took their turn trying to draw the sword, but none could succeed. Arthur, quite by chance, withdrew the sword for another to use in a tournament. Following this, he himself became king. He gathered knights around him and fought back against the Saxons who, since the Romans left Britain, were slowly but surely taking over the country. After many great battles and a huge victory at Mount Badon, the Saxons' advance was stopped. Arthur's base was at a place called Camelot. Here he built a strong castle. His knights met at the round table. They carried out acts of chivalry, such as rescuing damsels in distress and fought against strange beasts. They also searched for the lost treasure, which they believed could cure all illness. This was known as the quest for the Holy Grail. Under the guidance of Merlin, Arthur had obtained a magical sword from the Lady of the Lake, and this sword was named Excaliber. And with this weapon, he vanquished many of his foes. Queen Guinevere, Arthur's beautiful wife, brought romance to the story, which also his beautiful half-sister Morgan Le Fay added a dark twist to the tale. Unfortunately, as peace settled over the country, things turned sour within the court of Camelot, and a civil war began to break out. In the final battle at Camelot, both Arthur and Mordred, Arthur's traitorous nephew, was mortally wounded. Arthur was set upon a boat and floated down a river to the Isles of Avalon. Here, his wounds were treated by 3 mysterious maidens. His body was never found, and many say he rests under a hill with all his knights, ready to ride forth to save the country. As mysterious and how amazing this story of King Arthur is, with his powerful sword Excaliber and the infamous Knights of the Round Table, what we often forget to see is that this was all brought supposedly by a very powerful man named Merlin, who was Merlin? Merlin was a figure that was prominently featured in the King Arthur legends, and that he is a very powerful wizard. So where did Merlin come from? Merlin's traditional biography casts him as a Cambion. He was born of a mortal woman, but he was seared by an incubus, which is where he gets his supernatural abilities and powers from. So when they say, in no disrespect to any of the Catholic and Christian ways, that Mary was the Virgin Mary who was given Jesus to us, the Son of God. This also portrays Merlin as a woman who had been with an incubus, which could be as some form of demon or angel or something that impregnated this woman, which she gave birth to Merlin. So the notable prophecy and shape-shifting merely matures to an ascendant sage. So Merlin was King Arthur's most trusted advisor and prophet, magician, and most importantly, friend. And although there are debates whether Merlin is a real character or just some fictional character made up, creation of Merlin is in a story all that's worthwhile, a story all on its own, as well as being the sort of guide to King Arthur. I think there's enough to give Merlin his own video dedicated to Merlin, his sort of origins and his life and his end, and whether he was like an immortal, or whether he was, even after death, his physical body died, he was some sort of spiritual advisor. I like to sometimes think that many years ago, as a kid growing up, I was madly obsessed with a cartoon called The Thundercats, which was about a figure who is known as Lino, who is the Lord of the Thundercats. He's the leader, and his weapon was also a sword, the Sword of Omens, which contained the Eye of Thunder, which was a magical sword. Now, the guide to Lino was an ancient wizard called Jagger, and he comes to Lino in a spiritual form rather than a physical being. So I always wondered, is this, when it was created, was this based off the legend of King Arthur, which had a sword, a magical sword, and also had a wizard being a spiritual guide? So it does give it some credence to that's where it was inspired from. But all the same, I will look into Merlin and I will make a video about it. I hope you enjoyed my ramblings of King Arthur and his magic sword and his magic wizard and his friends and his cheating wife. Take care and see you all in the next video.